Okay, so the big learning goal for today is I can factor simple trinomials. So the first thing we're going to talk about is really what is a simple trinomial, and again, factoring. So we talked about common factoring all last week. We can factor out, Nick? Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's because Chris is not. Oh, she got called. Why did I never listen to that? Okay. So again, as a recall, the first type of factoring that you should always, always, always look for is common factoring. There's two things we can common factor out. What is one thing we can common factor? We can factor out a number that is common to all of them and a variable. Okay, so if we can common factor, that's always our go-to method first. That's the very, very first thing you should all be looking for. If there's nothing to common factor, then another method must be used. So here, I have here, it says factor x squared plus bx plus c. These are the type of trinomials that we're going to be looking at. A is equal to 1, which means in front of the x squared, there will be a 1. That's what makes it simple for today. So factoring a trinomial will always result in two binomials. Something you may have remembered from grade 10 is that this is when you have to find two numbers that multiply to your C term. So that means a product is another way of saying you multiply. And your B term, so find two numbers that multiply to C and add to B. And those two numbers will simply just be put into these two binomials. It's that easy. So you're finding this magic combination. So if I look here, it says we are to factor x squared plus 5x plus 6. So the steps that have to go through your head are what two numbers multiply to the product of C? You think you already figured it out? Okay, give me 2 seconds. Okay, what does C equal here? C is always your constant. So I have to find two numbers that multiply to 6. And then two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to what? 5. So that's what I have to figure out. That's the magic kind of combination that I'm going to look for. So it says here, use the product sum chart to come up with the two, I don't know what that was supposed to say. What does it say on yours? That's a big typo. I have no idea. I'm team teaching this with another teacher, and he made this note. Use the product sum chart to come up with the Okay, we're just going to ignore step 3 right now. So I have to find two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to 5. So I'm going to create a chart here. So you always want to start with the multiplication. So I'm going to start with here. My C is equal to 6. My B is equal to 5. So because C is equal to 6, I have to find some numbers that multiply to 6. What are some possibilities here that multiply to 6? Oh, spoiler alert.
Do we need a chart if it's like...
No, but I'm... Okay, so yes, you're right. 3 times 2 equals 6. What's another combination of 6 that I could get? 1 times 6. Plus minuses will be different. What's the only combination there that will result in 5 when you add them together? 3 times 2, because 3 plus 2, so I have 3 times 2 gives me 6. 3 plus 2 gives me 5. Those are my two numbers. That's my magic combination here. So all I have to do is I have two binomials. X is my variable, so I put X here. The numbers that worked were positive 3 and positive 2. And then I'm done. So once I find that combination, I just plug it into the brackets and I'm done with it. Now it says here you can always check your answer with FOIL. Try it out on your desks. So go get your bins. Okay, so what did you get when you FOILed this out? Austin, help me out. X squared. That's not what I get. Good. And what can I do with this? I have to simplify this, Jenny. X squared plus 5x plus 6. Whenever you factor, to check your work, you could always use FOIL. Look at, this is what I had to factor. This is what I got here. So I know that these two answers are the correct ones. Okay? Let's try the next one. Okay, I have to find, so this is in your note. Do you guys not have erasers? Does anyone have any extra erasers in theirs, like 3 or... this? Where'd you get that one from? Okay. Okay, so here I have to find two numbers that multiply to what for this first one? I'm just going to do it off to the side. Two numbers that multiply to 8, and they must add to what? 6. So if you go through the combinations, what two numbers multiply to 8 and add to 6? Nick? 2 and 4. 2 times 4 gives me positive 8. 2 plus 4 equals 6. So that satisfies the condition. So what will I write here? What will be my final answer? Austin? Good. That's it. Easy? Okay, what about the next one? I have to find two numbers that multiply to what and add to what? You guys have this in your notes. You should be copying this on your notes, not on the desks. Two numbers that multiply to what number here? 22. And they must add to, oh, it's not 22. Negative 22. And it must add to what? Luke? Zach. Why did I call you Luke? Zach? Pardon? Negative 9. Okay, so now it gets a little bit tricky when I'm dealing with negative numbers. You always have to see, is it positive or negative? So Nathan, can you tell me what two numbers multiply to negative 22? Negative 11 times 2. Okay, so you kind of have to go through the combinations if you're not used to it. When you have a negative answer, that means one of your numbers will always be negative. Okay, so I have here, if it's a negative 11 times 2, I do get negative 22. If I take negative 11 and I add 2, I get negative 9. So that's definitely my combination there. So what will I fill inside my binomials? What will I write? Jenny? Okay, no. It's just a minus 11. A minus negative 11 is actually a plus 11. So whatever the sign is, that's what you write. So a minus 11, what's in my next one? A plus 2. Does anyone have any questions with this? Okay, Let's do the next one. I have to find two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 7. What two numbers multiply to 12 and add to 7? Nick? Good. 4. 4 and 3. So C is equal to 12. B is equal to 7. So 3 times 4 does give me 12. And then if I do 3 plus 4, that gives me 7. So what will I write for what's my answer going to be, Nick? Very good. Okay, here's an interesting one. I have to find two numbers that multiply to 24 and add to negative 11. How do I get two numbers that multiply to a positive but add to a negative? What do I do? Two numbers that multiply to 24. What could they be, Nick? Negative 8 and negative 3. Negative 8 times negative 3 equals positive 24. When I add them together, negative 8 plus negative 3, I do get negative 11. So my two factors, how would I write this out? How would I write this out? What would be my final answer? Jenny? Good. Does anyone have any questions about this? Okay, let's do this next one. Oh, it's almost the same. What's different? The exponent. What do I do here? My numbers are still going to be the same. I have to find two numbers that multiply. Oops. That multiply to 24 and add to negative 11. So it's still going to be negative 8 and negative 3. Those are my two numbers that I use there. Nick, what will I write for my final answer here? Very good. B squared what? Okay, so it changes there. When it's to the exponent 4, I just divide it by 2. If the exponents are even, you just divide it by 2 to see. Now, if you were to FOIL this out, remember it has to give you exactly this. The only way you get that is when b is squared. Does that make sense? So that one was a little bit tricky with the exponent. Okay? And again, if I were to check this with FOIL, b squared times b squared gives me b to the exponent 4 minus 3b squared minus 8b squared plus 24. That's what I get when I use FOIL here. So because, again, it's to the exponent 4, you kind of have to look. A clue here that you could use, whatever this middle term is, typically that's what you'll put in first. So see how this is b squared? You'll put b squared first here, because that then simplifies to b to the exponent 4 minus 11b squared plus 24. Okay, my next one, I have to find two numbers that multiply to negative 12 and add to 1. Someone who I haven't heard from today. What two numbers multiply to negative 12 and add to positive 1? What do I get? No. No. Laura?
1. And I just wanted because 1's in more than 12.
I have two numbers. It has to multiply to negative 12. Okay, so I always look what I have to multiply. What numbers do I get to multiply? Well, I can get 12 in a bunch of different ways. If I do this off to the side, I can get 12 by doing 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Which one of those possibilities will add to 1 when I do it? Rob? Good. It has to be 4 and negative 3 in order for that to work. So I just write out, so my two numbers are 4 and negative 3, so a minus 4, oh sorry, a plus 4, a minus 3. Are we okay with that? All right, on your desk, I want you to try these 3 examples out. On your own, you can work together with your partners. Try them out on the desk with your partners. Okay, I've noticed that a lot of us maybe are having some difficulty with the first one. There's lots of possible answers to get. Again, when you have here, C has to give you positive 100. B has to equal negative 20. So because I have a positive and a negative, because it's multiplying to a positive number and adding to a negative one, right away in your head you should be saying both numbers have to be negative. In order for this to be a negative answer, both of those magic combo has to be a negative. So if I list through all the possibilities, I have 1 in 100, 2 and 50, and it will all be negative 2, negative 2 and 50, negative 4, negative 25, negative 5, and negative 20. Then I get to negative 10 and negative 10. Which one of those combinations will equal negative 20 when I add them together? When I write down all of those combinations? Austin? Negative 10 and negative 10 is the only one that leaves me with negative 20. Hello? Good, how are you? Yes, he is. Yep. Joey, you gotta go down to clear your attendance. Okay. So, again, what you would write here is y minus 10 times y minus 10. There's actually a simpler way I can write this. Did anyone else see it? Austin? And why can I write it like that? Because it's the same thing. Okay, so that's just it in simplified form. When I do the next one, I have to find two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to 10. What two numbers multiply to negative 24 and will add to 10? Nick? If I do negative 8 minus 3, I get negative 11.
So that's for the next one. Sorry, it's negative 2 plus 12.
If I do this one, negative 2 and positive 12. Negative 2 times 12 gives me negative 24. Negative 2 plus 12 gives me positive 10. So those two work out. So what did you get for an answer?
N minus 2 and N plus 12.
Good? Okay, what about the last one? Two numbers that multiply to 24 and add to negative 11. Here's an interesting one. What did you get? Nick? Pardon? Okay, I have negative 8, negative 3. That's the correct combination. Now, what do you write inside the brackets? Austin? Pardon?
AB minus 8, and then the other one's AB minus 3.
If we look at that, I can't quite write that out. Because if I were to do this in FOIL, that would be a squared b squared should be my first term. So this is, you're kind of there. It's a little bit tricky. What do I get here, Nick? What should I write? My first term has a b. My first term will have a b here. My last term has an a. My last term will have an a in the binomials. Okay, so you got to be careful. All right, erase your desks. No, I'm going to do this. You can do it on your activity. Okay, always common factor first. What do you notice first about this? What do you notice about this? What could you common factor out of this trinomial? Nathan? A 2. So, again, I can divide 2 by each one of these. So I'll write 2 here. Inside my brackets, what do I get here? Inside my brackets, when I factor out a 2, so you're copying this down in your notes. I don't want you to miss that, so I'm sorry I care. What do I get, Ben?
2 times x squared plus 2x plus 1.
Very good. Okay? Again, for today's purpose, a should always be a 1. So I'll have a 1 here. Now, I'm not done yet. I should always be left with a binomial. So what I still have to do, I have to find two numbers that multiply to what? I know. Before, we only had what number was always in front of the x squared? Okay. There was only a 1. Today's simple trinomials, so there should always be a 1. You should always common factor first. So I can common factor out a 2, so I'm left with this trinomial. So I'm left with C. I have to find two numbers that multiply to 1 and add to 2. What combination gives me that? Rob? 1 and 1. So Rob, can you help me out here? What will I write for my final answer? Sorry? Okay, so notice that I have to carry down this 2. This 2 just doesn't disappear. I factored it out, so it has to always be there. I can actually simplify this one step more. How could I rewrite this? Nathan? Does anyone have any questions about this? Okay, what about this next example? Yes, Austin. You okay? Okay. What about this next one? Is there something I can common factor out of here? What's the first step? Go ahead, Austin.
Can you factor 3x squared?
I can factor. Yeah, I can factor out a 3x squared. So 3 is common to each one of these terms. X squared is my lowest exponent, so I'm going to factor it out. So Austin, what will I write?
X squared, or yeah, bracket x squared plus
Okay, I need to find two numbers that multiply to what? Nathan? Pardon? Two numbers to multiply to -4 and add to +3. What combination will give me that? Nick? 4 and -1 does give me that combination. So what will I write for my final answer here, Nick?
3x squared + 4 5x minus 1.
Very good. Okay, does anyone have any questions about these ones? We're okay with this? All right, we're not going to go to the last